Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine for a second picking up your personal phone. We're talking about a private line here, totally separate from your public persona, and you're immediately just hit with a barrage of unprintable curses from a complete stranger. Sounds intense, right? Well, today on The Explainer, we're breaking down a pretty shocking story that recently sent absolute ripples through the Nigerian media landscape. We're going to look at this really intense collision between a journalist's duty to probe and the public's explosive reaction when those questions hit just a little too close to home.
What is my sin? I want you to just let that sink in for a second. That exasperated, deeply personal question came directly from veteran Nigerian TV host Morayo Afolabi-Brown. After dealing with a seriously disturbing invasion of her privacy, she actually took to social media to ask her audience and her harshest critics exactly that. What is my sin?
So let's get into section 1, the disturbing phone call.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer absurdity of the contrast here. You see, the inciting incident wasn't just your standard run-of-the-mill social media drag. No, a complete stranger actually bypassed all the usual online platforms, somehow got their hands on Morayo's private personal number, and used it just to verbally harass her with these unprintable curses. It's an insanely aggressive contrast to the actual intent of the Morayo Show. I mean, Morayo explicitly designed her platform not to bash people, but to spread love and joy.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just another day at the office for her. Over her extensive 21-year career in the media industry, Morayo is absolutely accustomed to online trolls. It comes with the territory, right? She's explicitly stated that she usually ignores negative messages entirely because, well, it's just not her thing to engage with them. But this incident? This was entirely different. A direct, curse-filled verbal assault on a private line? She mentioned she didn't even grow up around people who used curses like that. So this intrusion wasn't just annoying. It was deeply shocking and crossed a major, major line. It really highlights a growing issue for anyone in the public eye today. Where exactly does the job end and personal safety begin?
Which brings us to section 2, questions that sparked outrage.
To really understand this explosive reaction, we need to look at the catalyst. What exactly was Morayo asking her guests on national television that got people so riled up? Well, a string of recent, highly publicized celebrity interviews featured some incredibly probing questions. For instance, she questioned actress Toyin about a reported rift, she pressed another guest on some very personal experiences at a funeral, and she brought up the deeply sensitive topic of veteran actress Ireti Doyle's high-profile divorce. Now, obviously bringing these topics up on a live broadcast is naturally going to cause a massive stir among fans and viewers.
None of your business. That was the direct, totally unwavering response from veteran actress Ireti Doyle when asked about her divorce from Patrick Doyle on the show. So the crucial point is, there was already this palpable existing tension surrounding these interviews long before that crazy phone call ever happened. Guests were visibly pushing back on live television, and that friction, you could practically feel it radiating through the screen, straight into the audience's living rooms.
All right, moving into section 3, defending the right to ask.
Following that harassing phone call, Morayo didn't just back down. She offered a passionate, highly detailed defense of her profession. And her justification? It starts with a number. 21. That is the number of years she has spent grinding and working in the media industry. She isn't some novice looking for cheap clickbait. She is a deeply entrenched veteran. She knows the entire landscape of Nigerian media inside and out.
And 12. That's 12 years on television, hosting a show every single day, Monday through Friday. She was quick to highlight that there are honestly only a handful of Nigerians with that specific daily live broadcast experience. So you get this rapid visual 1-2 punch. 21 years in media, 12 years of daily television. That's her foundation for claiming unequivocally that she has earned her position.
And all that foundation, it leads directly to this incredibly striking quote from her response video. If Donald Trump comes here tomorrow, I will ask him whatever the heck I want to ask him. I mean, wow. That brilliantly illustrates her fearless attitude. She is reminding the audience, and of course her harshest critics, that she firmly believes her track record has earned her the unshakable right to ask difficult, probing questions to absolutely anyone who sits in her interview chair.
Section 4, setting boundaries with guests. Let's move to and see how this builds behind the scenes.
So how does this fearless attitude actually translate when the cameras aren't rolling? Because while she fiercely claims the right to ask tough questions, she actively balances that intense journalistic drive with real emotional safety. Her professional guardrails are pretty solid.
She sends questions to guests beforehand if they prefer it, allows them to explicitly highlight no-go areas before they even hit the set, agrees on a conversational scope, and above all, she never designs the show to embarrass anyone. She maintains that if she knows how to flow with a guest, they just naturally navigate the conversation together without stepping on any of those agreed-upon landmines.
And the thing is, there's concrete evidence that this boundary setting actually works in practice. Following her public statement about the phone call, several celebrities immediately jumped into our comments section to show their support. Actor Deyemi Okanlawan specifically praised her, noting a time how she immediately saw he wasn't emotionally ready to answer a certain question on air, and she just gracefully backed off. Actress Toyin Abraham also thanked her for the positivity on the show, and Shola Kosoko offered words of encouragement too. These aren't just empty claims. These specific anecdotes prove that her boundary setting and her empathy are very real, active parts of her interviewing toolkit.
Finally, we reach Section 5, the price of journalism.
Let's zoom out for a second and look at the macro industry perspective here, because this entire situation touches on a fundamental tension right at the heart of media. You have a viewer so incredibly offended by perceived intrusiveness that they actually commit personal harassment, stacked up against a professional who is simply executing their mandate. Morayo summarized her core frustration perfectly when she said, "It's my job, for heaven's sake, to ask questions." It really highlights a perplexing reality for a lot of interviewers today, being viciously attacked for simply executing the bedrock duty of their profession. Whether the audience happens to agree with the specific phrasing or the timing of a question, the actual act of asking, that is fundamental to the job.
Which leaves us with this critical, lingering dilemma. Where should the line be drawn between a journalist's absolute right to ask and a guest's fundamental right to privacy? When exactly does a probing interview become an invasion? And when does viewer outrage cross that dangerous line into harassment? It is a deeply complex balancing act of public accountability and personal boundaries. I want you to take a moment and really think about that the next time you watch a tense interview unfold on your screen. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer.